Your sister? She doesn't deserve a dime, she's out. Those words shattered me the day my parents cut me out of their lives, their will, and their family gatherings. They gave everything to my golden child sister, while I was left with nothing but betrayal. But what they didn't realize was that they had just fueled the fire for a revenge so perfect, so devastating, that they would choke on every cruel word they ever spat at me. If you've ever been underestimated, cut off, or treated like you didn't matter, smash that like button right now. Because this story, this one, is about sweet justice, karma, and proving everyone wrong when they least expect it. Subscribe for more stories like this, and let's dive in. I used to believe that family was supposed to be your anchor, the one place you could turn to when the rest of the world turned its back. But in my family, love wasn't given freely. It was measured, weighed, and distributed almost exclusively to my younger sister. From as far back as I can remember, I was the extra, the one who didn't quite belong. At birthday dinners, the pattern was always the same. My sister, Emma, would arrive late, hair perfectly styled, a new outfit paid for by Mom. And instantly the spotlight would shift. Mom's eyes lit up as if a celebrity had just walked in. Dad would puff up with pride as she told stories about her latest achievements. Meanwhile, I sat there quietly, pushing food around on my plate, waiting for someone to ask about my life. They rarely did. One memory still burns in me. I had worked myself raw studying for my math final. Numbers were never easy for me, but I pushed harder than I ever had before, and when I walked out with a solid B+, I was glowing with pride. That night at dinner, I waited for my chance to share. My heart raced as I said, I finally passed math with a B+. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud. Mom's response? She didn't even look up from her plate. She just said, "That's nice, honey." And then she immediately turned to Emma, who had gotten an A in her chemistry exam. The room exploded with praise. Dad clapped her on the shoulder, calling her our little genius. They toasted her with glasses of wine, while I sat there blinking back tears, shrinking into myself. That's what it was like, every single achievement of mine dismissed, every accomplishment of hers celebrated like she'd just cured cancer. It wasn't just grades. It was everything. When I got my first part-time job at a bookstore, I was proud of the independence. But my parents rolled their eyes. Why are you wasting your time making minimum wage? Focus on school. Meanwhile, when Emma wanted a car for her 16th birthday, they didn't hesitate. They didn't just get her a car, they bought her a brand new, shiny red Honda Civic with a bow on top. I still remember watching her scream with excitement in the driveway, while I stood in the window with my arms crossed, pretending I didn't care. But I did. God, I cared so much it ached in my chest. And that ache slowly turned into something else, something sharper. Because even back then, buried under all the disappointment and hurt, a small voice inside me whispered, "One day, you'll show them. One day, they'll regret making you feel invisible." That voice would keep me alive in the years to come. And eventually, it would lead me to the sweetest revenge I could have ever imagined. As we grew older, the divide between Emma and me wasn't just emotional anymore, it became financial, glaring, and humiliating. My parents didn't just play favorites in words, they built my sister's entire future brick by brick, while leaving me to scrape by with whatever I could manage on my own. When Emma got accepted into college, it was a celebration that could have rivaled a wedding. Balloons, cake, relatives invited over, the works. My parents announced proudly that they would cover her full tuition, room, and board. She wouldn't have to lift a finger, not even for textbooks. Me? When it was my turn, they shrugged. "We don't have that kind of money anymore," Mom said flatly, as if the bottom of the bank account had just magically appeared. "You'll need to figure something out. Scholarships, loans, part-time work. You're independent, you'll manage." Independent. That was their polite word for unworthy. I still remember filling out financial aid forms late at night, my hands trembling with stress while my sister scrolled online shopping sites in the next room, casually adding dresses and shoes to carts she never even bothered to check out, because she knew Dad would pay for them anyway. The bitterness wasn't just about money. It was about what their choices told me, loud and clear. You're not worth investing in. The knife twisted deeper when Emma turned 21. For her birthday, my parents handed her a set of house keys. They had put a down payment on a small condo for her, to give her a good start. I can still see her smile stretching across her face, smug and satisfied, while I stood there with my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Meanwhile, I was living in a crumbling apartment with peeling paint, 3 roommates, and a leaky ceiling. I had asked my parents once, timidly, if they could co-sign my lease so I could move somewhere safer.
Dad's answer?
A sharp laugh, followed by, "You need to learn responsibility. Life isn't about handouts." The hypocrisy was suffocating.
I stopped asking for anything after that.
The rejection wasn't worth the humiliation. But here's the thing, every no they gave me, every cold dismissal, every smile they reserved for Emma, it all fueled me. I worked shifts at a bookstore, waited tables on weekends, and squeezed every scholarship application dry until my hands cramped. I told myself, fine. If they won't give me a future, I'll build one myself. Still, there were nights I'd collapse into bed after a 16-hour day, my chest hollow, my hands shaking, wondering why I wasn't enough. Why their love, their support, had to be conditional.
And though the pain was sharp, something else was beginning to take root inside me.
It was quiet, almost invisible at first. But with every sacrifice, every bitter reminder, that little voice inside grew stronger.
It no longer whispered.
It promised, "You will rise. And one day, they'll wish they had chosen differently." By the time I graduated, I had stopped expecting any applause from my parents. When my name was called at the ceremony, I searched the crowd instinctively, hoping to see their faces.
They weren't there.
They had gone on a weekend trip with Emma to celebrate her new internship. My degree, earned through sleepless nights and endless shifts, wasn't even worth a text message.
So I clapped for myself that day.
Quietly, in the back of my head, I promised I would never let their neglect define my worth again.
The first years on my own were brutal. Rent devoured half my paycheck.
I ate noodles more often than real meals. I wore thrift store suits to job interviews and prayed the seams wouldn't split. My hands were calloused from juggling side hustles, tutoring kids, managing shelves at the bookstore, even walking dogs in the early mornings.
But slowly, something shifted. I landed an entry-level job at a small firm.
The pay was modest, but for the first time, I wasn't drowning. I threw myself into the work, staying late, asking questions, absorbing everything like a sponge.
My bosses noticed.
"You've got grit," one of them said. That word, grit, stuck with me. It wasn't brilliance like Emma had been praised for, but it was mine. Meanwhile, family gatherings became a stage where I was cast as the comic relief, the struggling sibling, the one who tried so hard but never quite made it. At Thanksgiving, Emma flaunted her designer heels and chatted about her condo renovation. "When are you finally going to settle down and get a real career?" she asked, smirking as she speared a piece of turkey. My father chuckled, shaking his head. "Not everyone can be like you, sweetheart." Heat rushed to my cheeks, my palms clammy under the table. I forced a smile and said nothing, but inside, my stomach burned like acid. They didn't see the hours I poured into my work, the way I stretched every dollar just to keep the lights on.
To them, I was still the disappointment.
But here's what they didn't know. While they were busy laughing, I was laying foundations. I was learning, saving, investing quietly. Every insult became fuel. Every sneer from Emma hardened my resolve. Late at night, after long shifts, I'd sit at my desk with a cheap laptop, scribbling plans, reading everything I could about building something of my own. I didn't know exactly how yet, whether it would be a business, an idea, a breakthrough, but I knew this, I would not live small forever. And though they couldn't see it, cracks were forming in the picture-perfect life of my golden child sister.
She wasn't as invincible as they thought.
I didn't realize it then, but the tide was beginning to turn. It happened on an ordinary Sunday dinner, the kind of night when the air feels thick with routine, and you think nothing monumental could possibly happen.
But that night would change everything.
Emma was glowing as usual, chattering about her upcoming vacation to Italy. My parents listened like disciples at a sermon, nodding, smiling, hanging on every word. I was barely halfway through my plate of roast chicken when Dad cleared his throat and said, almost casually, "We've updated our estate plans." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. The way he said it made something cold crawl up my spine. Emma's eyes sparkled. She already knew.
Of course she did.
Dad continued, "We've decided to leave the house and savings to Emma. She's more responsible with money."
I blinked.
"Excuse me." Mom gave me that tight, dismissive smile she always wore when she was about to deliver a blow.
"Honey, it's nothing personal. It's just, Emma has proven herself. She's steady, she's dependable.
We know she'll take care of things.
The words lodged in my chest like glass shards. Nothing personal.
That's what people say when they are ripping your heart out and pretending it's kindness. So what about me? My voice cracked despite my best effort to keep it even. Dad didn't hesitate.
You'll be fine. You've always been independent.
You don't need a dime from us. He said it so matter-of-factly, like my existence had already been erased from their financial and emotional ledger.
Emma smirked, leaning back in her chair. Don't take it too hard.
I mean, you've never really been the investment type.
Her words landed like a slap.
My cheeks burned, my throat tight, and my hands trembled under the table. In that moment, I wanted to scream, to throw the plate across the room, to force them to see the years I had clawed my way through without their help.
But I didn't.
I swallowed every ounce of pain, nodded stiffly, and excused myself from the table. Upstairs, in the bathroom, I locked the door and braced myself against the sink. My reflection stared back at me, hollow-eyed, trembling. Tears threatened, but I forced them down. I couldn't give them that satisfaction. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. Their decision, their cruelty, had given me clarity. For years, I had wondered if maybe I was overreacting, if maybe I was too sensitive about the favoritism.
But now, they had said it outright.
To them, I was nothing. Invisible.
Unworthy.
And in that bathroom, fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms, I made myself a promise.
I would not beg.
I would not chase their scraps of approval anymore. I would build a life so big, so unshakable, that one day when they realized what they had thrown away, it would be too late. That night, their rejection became my fuel. And my revenge was already taking shape. After that night, something inside me shifted permanently. The ache of being disowned didn't vanish, but it hardened into resolve. Every insult, every dismissal, every cruel smirk Emma tossed my way became fuel. If they thought I didn't deserve a dime, fine. I'd build dollars, stacks of them, without ever needing their help. I threw myself into work with a fire I hadn't felt before. My days started at 5 a.m., scribbling business ideas in a notebook while the city was still asleep. I read voraciously, finance, entrepreneurship, leadership. At lunch breaks, while coworkers gossiped or scrolled through their phones, I studied investment strategies and listened to podcasts about building companies. Opportunities started small. I freelanced on the side, picking up projects others didn't want. The pay wasn't glamorous, but every check felt like another brick in the foundation I was laying. Slowly, I saved enough to invest in a small business idea. People laughed when I told them I wanted to try. Too risky, they said. Don't waste your money. But I had already learned that other people's approval meant nothing. The first venture wasn't perfect. I stumbled, made mistakes, lost sleep, nearly lost my sanity. But every failure taught me something new, and I refused to quit. That grit my old boss had once seen in me became my greatest weapon. Within a few years, what had started as late-night scribbles turned into something real. The business began to grow. Then it doubled. Then it tripled. I remember sitting in my modest apartment one night, staring at the numbers on my screen, realizing I had just hit 6 figures. Tears welled up, not from sadness this time, but from the overwhelming relief of finally proving to myself that I was capable. Meanwhile, Emma's life was a glossy highlight reel on the outside. Social media full of vacations, shopping sprees, champagne brunches. My parents bragged endlessly about her success. But underneath, I began to notice cracks. She complained about credit card bills. She borrowed money from mom for emergencies. Her condo, the one they gifted her, needed expensive repairs she hadn't planned for. I stayed silent, keeping my own growing success hidden. At family dinners, I let them think I was still struggling. It was easier that way. Let them underestimate me. But when I drove home after those dinners in the used Honda I'd paid for in cash, I felt something they couldn't buy with all their favoritism: pride. Every penny I owned was mine. And as my business grew into an empire I had built brick by brick, I realized something chilling but powerful. I didn't just want success for myself. I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to choke on their words when they realized the daughter they had cut off, dismissed, and humiliated was the only one who had truly made it. And soon, fate would hand me the perfect opportunity to deliver that truth. At first, I ignored them. A cousin mentioned that Dad had retired earlier than planned, and that their savings weren't stretching the way they thought. Then I heard Emma had missed a couple of mortgage payments. I brushed it off. After all, they had always made it clear I wasn't part of their safety net.
But the cracks widened faster than I expected.
One evening, as I was reviewing contracts in my office, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Can we talk?"
Just those 3 words, but they sent a cold shiver down my spine. It had been months since she'd reached out.
I agreed to meet them for dinner, more out of curiosity than obligation. When I walked into the restaurant, the scene was almost surreal.
My once confident parents looked smaller, hunched somehow.
Dad's suit was worn, his tie loose. Mom's face carried new lines of stress. And Emma, the golden child, the one who had always looked untouchable, avoided my eyes. Her nails were chipped, her smile forced. "Thank you for coming," Mom began, her voice softer than I remembered.
I sat down, waiting. Dad cleared his throat.
"We've hit a rough patch. The market hasn't been kind to our investments. And Emma's had some difficulties with her condo and other expenses." He trailed off, glancing at her. Emma finally spoke, her voice brittle. "I just need a little help, that's all. Things have been tight." I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. The same people who once told me I didn't deserve a dime were now sitting across from me, practically begging. The irony was so sharp, I could taste it. Mom reached across the table, her hand trembling. "We know we weren't always fair.
But you're doing well now, aren't you?"
"We were hoping you might support us. Just until things get better."
Support them.
After years of neglect, of cutting me out, of laughing at my struggles, now I was their lifeline. I let their words sink in, the air thick with desperation. For years I had imagined this moment, rehearsed it in my head.
And now, sitting across from them, I realized something.
I didn't need to scream or rage.
The power was already mine.
I smiled, calm, steady, unshaken. "Do you remember what you told me that night?"
I asked quietly. "You said I didn't deserve a dime. That I'd be fine without you. And you know what?
You were right.
I am fine.
Better than fine." Their faces drained of color. Emma shifted uncomfortably, biting her lip. "I built everything without you," I continued, my voice sharp but even. "And I'm not about to hand it over now, just because you finally realized you bet on the wrong child."
The silence that followed was deafening.
For the first time in my life, I wasn't the invisible one. I was the one holding all the cards. And watching their shocked, broken faces across that table was the beginning of the sweetest revenge I had ever tasted. I sat there, watching them shift uncomfortably in their seats, the same people who once looked down at me like I was nothing. Now they couldn't even meet my eyes. Dad cleared his throat, desperate. "We might have made mistakes.
But we're still family."
Family helps each other. The hypocrisy was almost laughable. Family, to them, had always been conditional, based on how much they adored Emma and how little they valued me. Now that the tables had turned, suddenly the word family was supposed to erase years of neglect? I leaned forward, resting my hands calmly on the table. Family isn't supposed to mean using someone when it's convenient.
Family is supposed to be about love and respect. And you never gave me either.
So no, I won't be your safety net. Emma's face twisted, her usual smugness replaced by panic. "You're being petty. You have more than enough money. Why can't you just share?" Her words only confirmed what I'd always known.
She'd never worked for anything.
Sharing to her meant I sacrificed while she stayed comfortable. I smiled, not cruelly, just with finality.
"Because you made it clear I didn't deserve a dime. So now?
You don't deserve mine." The look on her face, outrage mixed with disbelief, was almost poetic. My parents sat in stunned silence, their empire of favoritism crumbling in real time. I stood, sliding my chair back slowly, savoring the moment. "I hope one day you understand what it feels like to be cut off, dismissed, told you aren't enough.
Because that's the lesson you gave me. And tonight, I'm giving it back."
And with that, I walked out of the restaurant, shoulders straight, heart steady. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten child, the extra at the table, the one who didn't measure up. I was the one who had risen above, without their love, without their help, without their inheritance. And leaving them behind in that silence, forced to choke on their own words, was worth more than any dime they could have ever given me. Walking away that night, I realized something profound. Revenge isn't always about shouting, fighting, or proving yourself in the moment. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply living well, becoming the version of yourself they swore you could never be. For years, I had carried their words like chains. You don't deserve a dime.
You out.
But in breaking away, in building my own future brick by brick, I learned those chains were never real. They had only the power I gave them.
And as for my parents and Emma, their downfall wasn't because I wished it on them.
It was because entitlement eventually eats itself alive. They had chosen to invest everything in the golden child and discard me like an afterthought.
They made their choice, and they had to live with it. The best part?
I no longer needed their validation, their approval, or even their presence in my life.
I had built my own.
And that was worth more than any inheritance they could have dangled in front of me. Sometimes, walking away isn't just the end of the story. It's the beginning of freedom.
And that's where I'll leave you.
If this story gave you chills, smash that like button right now. It helps more people find these stories. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated or cut out, only to rise above and prove everyone wrong?
I'd love to hear your stories.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more of the most emotionally charged, jaw-dropping revenge stories every single week. Because sometimes, karma doesn't knock gently.
It kicks the door wide open.